Welcome to Liner Notes. My name is David Bixler. Bassist Linda Oh's recording Glass Hours features the front line of vocalist Sara Serpa and tenor saxophonist Mark Turner, while pianist Fabian Almazan and drummer Obed Calvarie join her in the rhythm section. In this episode of Liner Notes, she talks about how a new awareness of the fragility of life in a world that can be an unsafe place has repurposed her music. Linda Oh, welcome to Liner Notes. Thank you for taking time to speak with us this afternoon. We are here to talk about your new recording on Biophilia Recordings, and it's due out June 2nd and features a lineup of yourself on both acoustic and electric bass and also vocals. Great Mark Turner on tenor, Sara Serpa on voice, Fabian Almazan piano, and Obed Calvarie on drums and cymbals. Maybe to start with your relationship with these musicians, both personally and musically.
Yeah, sure. So the album is called The Glass Hours. So it's all generally about the fragility of time and what we choose to do with it, with our limited time here on Earth. And I'm really lucky to have these incredible musicians on this album. Fabian Almazan, who's also my husband and founder of the record label that this album is on, the Biophilia record label, which is a record label that supports environmental awareness and environmental initiatives. And Fabian has been someone that I've been playing with for the past, I think, 17 years now. So we've got a really strong history together, playing in my group, in his group, and as side people with various different bands. And we play a lot duo together throughout the pandemic. We were able to play with each other, or just being partners, of course. That was really awesome to actually be able to play with somebody. I know a lot of musicians weren't able to. Fabian is a fantastic pianist who I went to Manhattan School of Music with, and he played for many years with Terence Blanchard and with many other musicians. Great composer, Cuban-American musician. Sara Serpa is a dear friend of mine. We've worked in a few different spaces, but played a little bit duo, and I was really excited to finally have her on a project of mine. I really love her style. You know, she's got this really beautiful, understated vocal style that's not dramatic. It's not over the top. It's this beautiful, dark, warm sound, and something that I wanted for this group. Obed Calvarie was on my first record with Ambrose Musri. It was a trumpet trio record, and I've known him for quite a while. He went to Manhattan School of Music before Fabian and myself, and we've played in various different contexts together throughout the years, and he's one of those people that really can do anything on the drums. And Mark Turner, it's such a trip having his sound on my music. I've listened to him in so many different contexts as a side person and as a leader, and just to hear what he does melodically with the material and within each song, it's really something special. And I'm so honored that he agreed to be a part of this.
The group sounds fantastic. The music is very rich, so much going on without being cluttered. And I was really taken with the counterpoint, which, often was rhythmic, which I thought was just very engaging, very cool. And also the orchestration, like the balancing of the tenor and the vocals is, I think, definitely handled. There was one cut I was listening to, and it sounded to me like I was wondering if Mark had doubled soprano on, it was an octave higher than the tenor going on. Obviously, some things gave it away that you knew it was a human voice. And then they break apart and come together, and, congratulations on that. Very, very interesting music. Maybe talk about your compositional process. I want to jump into the meaning behind the music because that's very well spelled out in your notes. From a technical aspect, how do you write?
I have quite a few different ways to approach composition, and a lot of it depends on the meaning of the song or what I'm trying to convey with the message of the music. I have like hundreds of voice memos on my phone of things that I hear and I'm singing in my head and out loud, and I keep that as a record a lot of the times if it's something that I'm just hearing, and if I can mold that into something, that's one approach. With some of these songs, I thought about a specific theme or an emotion that I was thinking of conveying. And the opening piece, Circles, is quite a frantic piece. I wanted this feeling of like you're running around in circles, you know. It's about the hedonic treadmill that we find ourselves running on, trying to find happiness, thinking if we buy the next iPhone or the next house or the next piece of clothing, we're going to be happy. And that idea of just chasing after the next pleasure instead of embracing the moment and appreciating the moment. And so what I wanted to convey with that was sort of a cyclical feeling that it feels like you're never really stopping, you know, kind of like an Escher painting where you see somebody running up the stairs and you never see them, they just keep running up and up, you know. So the way the piece is constructed, it kind of, the way the form is, it feels like it doesn't really end until the climax at the end. And I do this through various ways. There are rhythmic patterns throughout this that never make you feel like you're settled. And just when you feel like you're settling into something, the rhythm changes so that the rug sort of gets pulled out of you. And that's through various things. There is a pulse that is inherent throughout the whole piece, but it's sort of chopping and changing between groupings of 3, groupings of 5, groupings of 4. So, I guess if I just sing a little bit of the rhythm, maybe you can get a bit of a sense of it. So like, and having that little sort of hiccup at the end makes it, for me, it feels like you're just sort of almost stumbling into the next phase, you know, which sometimes I feel like that's life, you know. We can almost feel like we're on this treadmill, we're just stumbling forward, you know.
Life in these days. And the recording is bookended with a beautiful composition, Hatchling. You're a new mother, correct? And everything in between seems to me to kind of reflect, all aspects of your life. And so let's jump in the liner notes. There's a quote, and I'm going to read. At some point, you say, as an artist, you have to reflect and ask, why am I playing music when there's all these things happening in the world? We all go through these phases where we realize just how precious and fragile our time here really is, and wonder how we are going to better our lives and the lives of those we love. To some extent, those questions can't be reconciled, but music has been a healing force for me. It helps me pull myself into the moment and process some of that confusion. So maybe that's a loaded question. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I mean, I think people really, they want to know what's going into the music, what an artist is thinking. So how, like you say these questions can't be answered, but how is the creation, for example, of this recording, how has this been healing to you?
Sometimes as an individual, as a musician, as an artist, I think it's easy for us all to feel a little bit, I wouldn't say powerless, but when you think about the people who are in power and what it takes to make positive change, I'm really in awe of people who are really who have dedicated their lives to creating positive change. And one thing that I can say is that, like, I do my best day to day as a good, upright, standing citizen as a human being, to think about what I am, what is my contribution, what is my legacy to this world, And although I may not be a politician who has the power to make executive orders or implement laws, or I may not be a senator to impact some of these bigger picture laws, I still have my viewpoints. And I feel like with music, especially the music that I play, that I have dedicated my life to, there's an obligation to convey some of these emotions that I'm feeling, these conflicted emotions, that I think we all think about and experience throughout the days, whether it be social issues, political issues. And the music that I write is not necessarily party music. It's not that I don't want people to feel good, because I do think there are elements of my music that I do want some calm, some respite. There's even literally a song in this on this album called Respite, which is sort of a break from the turbulence of some of the other pieces. But I think we do live in this world of this push and pull, of these paradoxes, and I write this music to reflect on some of those paradoxes, and also for me to process some of these paradoxes with which we live in, but also to question some of these things and appreciate and embrace the moment. I'm active in my own way with certain issues. I donate to the causes that I believe in. But ultimately with this music, I do want to convey some of these emotions that maybe aren't so easy to grapple with day to day, or to articulate even day to day, And I do want to create a sense of empathy when I write, in terms of thinking about each other, thinking about the spaces within which we all operate together with.
In seeing new life, in being a parent, one does, the natural inclination is to realize how precious and fragile life is, as you stated here. When you talk about, okay, you're questioning, why am I doing this music? Why am I creating this music, participating as an improviser and as a composer? Has this changed as you look on this young life that you connected to for the rest of your life? Has that changed your motivation to do what you do?
Yes, absolutely. And I think in some ways it's made me let go a lot more. It's made me a little less precious about certain things that were maybe in the past a little more pedantic than needed to be. When you look at this life who is completely 100% dependent on you, you do realize what is actually important, and some of the egoistic tendencies that we can all have as artists and musicians really don't mean as much, and that has really been awesome, when writing, when playing music. It's also made me a lot more focused in many ways, because there's such limited time. Speaking about the fragility of time, you definitely feel that, with a 2.5-year-old right now. So it makes me a lot more determined to get what I need to get done within a short amount of time.
Definitely. One of the other things I wanted to ask you is, you've probably spoken about this before, but I was listening to your recording and my wife came into the room and she asked me who I was listening to. And I said, oh, it's the woman that I'm interviewing today. And she's a musician and she's very pro-woman. She said, oh, is she the vocalist? And, you do sing I see this, and I want to ask you about that because I'm not sure where Sara is and where you are and what was overdubbed. But as a, strong force on the bass and as a composer, do you still feel that you are encountering resistance, acceptance as a woman on a bass that is, if I can say this without getting in trouble, traditionally male-dominated, or has been, historically?
Yeah, well, one thing I can say is that I do think things are changing for the better. I am seeing a lot more diverse musicians in terms of gender across the board, in this music. And I think that's thanks to a lot of people, a lot of initiatives. I feel very privileged in the space in my particular position at the moment because I've worked very hard to be where I am. I've done the slug many years in New York City, carrying electric bass on my back, upright bass, maybe
Going through the turnstile.
ways. Exactly. Lifting it up on the turnstiles, playing jam sessions till 3 a.m. for $50, and doing session after session just to get my chops up, get my stamina up. And I'm proud to have been a side person as well as a leader, in my career. And I feel like that has really helped shape me as a leader and as a bass player, I think there are still challenges. It wasn't that long ago where there were a specific instances where maybe I would have felt some discrimination. It's always tricky because you never 100% know why someone may be treating you a certain way or treating you badly. It could be because you look like someone that they don't like. Could be, could be your gender, could be race, could be lots of different things. They might just not like the way you play. And so in my mind, I don't want to waste my time with people if I feel like I'm being discriminated against in some way or another. At this point, I feel very lucky in the position that I'm in, but, I am very conscious when I look towards my students and I see certain attitudes, and I feel like a lot of that is changing with this younger generation. And, my students that I have now, I was just saying the other day, now that it's the end of semester, I'm just so proud of a lot of these younger students, around, 18 to early 20s, that there's just this beautiful atmosphere. It's not across the board, but the majority of students I've encountered, there's a deeper awareness, I think, about how we treat one another. And that I'm really proud of. And I hope we can keep going in that direction. Ultimately, it's not easy to be a musician. It's not easy to be an artist. We need to support each other, and be kind,
That's encouraging to hear. Where do you teach?
So I teach at Berklee College of Music. I also do various residencies throughout the year at different colleges, institutions.
Okay, great. Going back to you as a vocalist and as a composer, this music in a way could be viewed perhaps as programmatic. I don't know if I'm correct in this. Do only 2 of them actually have lyrics?
Yes.
Okay.
Antiquity and Giuseppe Bellum. Mm-hmm.
So what necessitated in your, person to put lyrics to those? I mean, was there a message that needed to be conveyed that was beyond the instrumental?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am not I'm lyricism is not my forte. I feel like I express myself a lot better as an instrumentalist and with the music than necessarily with the lyrics. But this was something that I felt was really necessary with these 2 songs. Antiquity is specifically about, it's a caricature of a person who's stuck in the past, who is glued to the television screen, almost watching reruns over and over again and not living in the present and wishing for the past, some sort of past or idyllic past that they remember. And it's about the type of person that wishes not to change or not to see how the whole world has progressed. And in many ways, it is not very malleable to how the world has changed.
The sound of glass, a flicker of a heartbeat, bathed in the hum and glow of a distant screen. Images reflecting on an even more distant, humdrum life. A channel that won't change, and yet he moves with eyes aglaze, leaving a sweet fragrance of must and creature comfort, like the warm embrace of a familiar cloud. We are creatures, you and I, of habit, and inhabiting his dreams is the past replaying itself. The past replaying itself over and over and over.
Sara does a great job with interpreting these the spoken word. Essentially, the lyrics they talk about the sound of glass, the flicker of a heartbeat, meaning that there's somebody there, but they're not really quite there. You know, they're alive and breathing, but are they really alive? Are they really living life? A flicker of a heartbeat, moving with eyes aglaze, talking about the comfort of habit. We are all creatures of habit, and inhabiting his dreams is the past playing itself over and over again. And it's about that trope, that kind of person, the kind of person I hope not to be, you know, in the sense that I hope I can be aware of what's happening in this world and be constantly challenged in terms of, you know, my belief systems, and be open to new ideas, you know. Jus ad bellum is a song that's sort of a prayer for peace. You know, I feel very privileged and lucky to be a musician, to be able to tour, to be able to practice. You know, not everyone in this world gets to have even a separate room by themselves to play music, you know. And I think about that a lot with all these conflicts around the world, you know, some closer to home than others. And there are musicians out there in the world that have to deal with this. There are musicians in the Ukraine. There are musicians in various places that literally have to deal with armed conflict. And just because of the sheer luck, they happen to be born in a certain place, you know. So it's a prayer for peace. It's also a sort of gratitude to veterans who have fought on behalf of me and on behalf of a lot of people throughout the world. So I thought that the lyrics were really necessary, you know. Draw your luck, draw your weapon, hungry enough to eat our own. Drawing your luck, you know, it just really depends on where you happen to be born that you have to deal with a lot of this conflict. And hungry enough to eat our own, you know, ultimately we are all human beings, you know, yet this still continues, you know, and this is, you know, some of the paradoxes we have to live with. I was, at this point when I was writing this music, I was undertaking a Coursera course on international human rights and reading about some of the laws of armed conflict, and it's just, it's so necessary that it has to be that way, but it's such a paradox, you know, that a just war, that, you know, the right to go to war, you know, in terms of what is just, you know, at the end of the day, you know.
That is a tough subject. Was writing the lyrics, was that difficult? Are you someone that has written poetry for some time, or did you just decide, I want to create these songs? And
yeah, I mean, I love poetry. I've tried to write lyrics and poetry in the past, and it's something that I don't want out there until I really feel that it's, you know, something that I really think is true to me. But, you know, I have to say that leading up to writing some of these lyrics, I mean, I'm working on my Spanish. I'm constantly working on my Spanish because my husband speaks only Spanish to our son, Nilo. And one of the ways that I've been working on it is looking at Silvio Rodriguez songs, Silvio Rodriguez being the amazing Cuban singer-songwriter, and translating them into English. And that has been a huge inspiration in amongst various other singer-songwriters that we all adore. We had Joni Mitchell's Blue, and I'm now blanking on the name, the orchestral album with the arrangements by Vince Mendoza. We had that basically on repeat, like every night when my son was born, and that was one of his sleep prompts to soothe him. So various singer-songwriters and lyricists have really inspired me.
That sounds like good parenting to me right there. Before I let you go, what's next for you, Linda?
Yeah, so tomorrow we leave for a 5-night run in St. Louis, May 24th to May 28th.
Excuse me, is that with this band?
It's with a slightly different configuration. It's a quartet with Fabian Almazan on piano, Christian McGee on drums, and Greg Ward on alto saxophone, who was on my second last album, Aventurine. And then it's quite a bit of travel. My husband and I have a duo tour in Ireland, 8 dates. I'm doing some teaching in DC at the Betty Carter Jazz Ahead program. And we have a short European tour in the summer, North Sea Jazz Festival, Warsaw, Emilia Reggio in Italy. So it's a busy summer and quite a bit of touring, but it'll be great.
All right. Well, fantastic. The recording is indeed The Glass Hours. I thank you so much for your time and congratulations on the recording. Good talking with you.
Thank you, David. Thanks.
Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Van Doren Reeds and Mouthpieces. Be sure and check out the Van Doren Advisory Studio in New York City for all your sound sculpting needs. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Arlen's Good Beer in Bowling Green, Ohio. Engineered by Marco Mendoza. Visit his website at engineeredbymarco.com. The theme music is No FOMO, Mofo by yours truly. Produced by David Bixler. Be sure and subscribe to Liner Notes wherever you find your podcasts. If you like what you hear, I ask that you consider supporting Liner Notes financially. You can do this by going to the Liner Notes tab at davidbixler.com. Thank you for your consideration.